All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the iDiet cooking demo with Dr. Roberts. My name is Jim O'Toole. I am a dietitian as well as one of the senior group leaders here at iDiet. Joining me is, of course, Dr. Roberts. So, Dr. Roberts, let's see. It's a very long list of credentials, but just to name a few, Dr. Roberts, professor researcher at Tufts University. She's also the founder and chief scientific advisor of iDiet. But maybe most importantly, when it comes to what we're doing today, she's the chef of all of these delicious recipes that we're going to be looking at. So today we're going to be doing all Thanksgiving recipes. So it's a very special cooking demo. We're really going to focus on Thanksgiving recipes just in time for the holiday season. So Dr. Roberts, what are we making today?
Oh, we have such a whole spread. And I'm excited and nervous in equal measures for this because I love Thanksgiving cooking, but having to do these things in public, what if I mess up? We'll see. I'm going to try not to.
That's okay. We can just edit it out. That's the great thing about video.
Everybody gets to see.
So
I know. I watch. I read the New York Times, and every year about Thanksgiving, they have this hotline, so you can ask questions online live about how to cook your turkey and things like that. And I've never understood that because I think you just hide in your kitchen and you'll deal with it, and you manage, but when you do it live, it's a whole different thing. So I do have a certain number of nerves, and we'll see how it goes.
I have a feeling it's going to go great. So maybe, Dr. Roberts, you could start with just a list of what you're going to do, and then I can take care of some notes and things like that.
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
So I think just thinking about what I'm going to do to start with is, how do you think about Thanksgiving and weight management? And I would say the first thing is, Thanksgiving's a great holiday. We all celebrate it in America, even if, like me, you come from another country. It doesn't matter what religion is. Everybody does Thanksgiving. So it's a really nice holiday. It's not commercial. You don't have to buy presents for people. It can be a bit stressful if you've got people there that you feel uncomfortable with.
It's a lot of family there, yeah.
But the food is the center of the table. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that as a weight loss scientist, I should be telling people I want them to, stick at it and continue to lose as much weight through Thanksgiving. To my mind, the goal is to not gain weight. That's one important goal. A second important goal is not to re-trigger all of those cravings that you've worked hard to get rid of, because then you're going to be struggling the whole way through the Thanksgiving season. So enjoying it, having a beautiful spread, not gaining weight, even if you don't lose weight, and not re-triggering the cravings. And I think you can do all of those things and eat just as well as you ever did before.
I really like that because people can be really hard on themselves around the holiday season.
Yeah.
And it can be like, they will send me a message and I'll say, in my mind, it looks great, but they're beating themselves up. So looking at your goals around the holiday season, looking to maintain, I think that's really good advice.
Right. And not to trigger the cravings because, Thanksgiving can be the start of a 5 or 10 pound weight gain when you just kind of go off into orbit.
Absolutely.
And before I was a weight loss scientist, I used to do that. So I do understand that it doesn't happen automatically. But so we have a number of strategies in iDiet, and the combination of them, I think, is really a pretty powerful way to help people. Mm-hmm. And I use them myself. The first one is extra fiber. And, we have this beautiful 4-day plan which works. You keep getting the fiber going in so that you're not starving and ravenous. If you want to bank a few calories for the special food on Thanksgiving, you can even just cut down to just having fiber and Greek yogurt for breakfast and lunch before the main meal. That's okay too, so that you go into the meal and you haven't had other things during the day. So fiber is a really important thing. And then more recently, I introduced this preemptive strike.
Right, the preemptive strike.
And I did that because every week I read all the new research papers that have come out on obesity. And that's one of my jobs, is to decide, is this really good science that my dieters could use to help them? Mm-hmm. And a couple of years ago, there was this beautiful paper about familiarity of tastes kind of helping avoid overeating in other situations. And I thought, yes, that's what we need for Thanksgiving, because you can have things like stuffed chicken breast. You can have things like cranberry sauce, if you like, for a week or two before. And then you can really enjoy the Thanksgiving meal. But it's not like this is your only time of the year to enjoy stuffing. And I tried that on myself, which is what I do with all of our science before it ever gets out into the outside world. Mm-hmm. And it was really powerful. I mean, I enjoyed the extra food. It took away the kind of compulsion to feel like this is your chance to get stuffing. You have to have triple helpings because it's going to go away and you're not going to have it again for another 12 months.
Absolutely. That's actually extremely good advice. And just a quick note here for everyone frantically trying to write all this down. We're actually going to record this cooking demo, and tomorrow morning I'm going to send it out to everybody, and as well as the recipes that Dr. Roberts is going to use today. So that's all going to be sent to you in an email tomorrow morning, so you don't have to frantically write everything down.
And so the great thing about this preemptive strike is you can use our healthy iDiet recipes. And so you're not going to be overeating. You can continue to lose weight all the way through. So the recipes today are kind of focused on what can you have that's really special and delicious for Thanksgiving, that's not going to cause you to gain weight. You're going to enjoy everything just as much. And some of those you can use for your preemptive strike too. Okay,
so some examples for something for preemptive strike. Very cool. So before we get started, just a couple quick notes, agenda of what we're going to do today. So we're going to start with these recipes right here, these Thanksgiving recipes, a couple for people who like to cook. We're then going to go a couple for people who don't like to cook, would rather go use the microwave option. And then we're going to end with some desserts. After that, segment 2, we're going to actually, Dr. Roberts is going to review some of the commercial iDiet legal products out there, including desserts and wraps. So that's segment 2. And the final segment is going to be, as we always end these, with 5 questions with Dr. Roberts. One final note before we get started. You might have noticed Lee Bush, he's one of our group leaders. He'll be on the chat. So if you have any questions at all, please feel free to ask Lee. But I should note one thing. These recipes, some of them are so new that I haven't even seen them. Dr. Roberts is the only one that's seen these. So Lee might not be able to answer all of your questions just because you haven't seen the recipes yet. So we'll definitely take those questions down, and we'll definitely make sure we get some answers to you. But I think that's enough talking. What do you think, Dr. Roberts? You want to
just dive straight in? Okay. So let's start with stuffed chicken breast. And the reason I'm starting with that is because I love stuffing. Stuffing is one of the things I really like. And there's really healthy, easy ways to do this. We could eat this recipe every week of the year, and it would contribute to weight loss. So I've got the stuffing 2 different ways, and we're going to use a skinless chicken breast, and I'm going to show you how to prepare that so it doesn't get dry and horrible. So this is my first attempt at not messing up here. We're starting with just one example. I'm just using one chicken breast here, and then I've got some cooked ones to show you. But we start with, just taking off the little bits of fat that you see on the outside. And then to stuff it, we need to basically slice it without slicing all the way through. So I've got a really good sharp knife here, and I'm going to do this fairly cautiously. I'm going to do it like in a fairly organic way so that I hopefully don't slice it all the way through by accident. But the goal is basically to make a pocket in the inside to put some stuffing inside. And it's kind of like a butterflying procedure basically, but if you do it slowly, you can create this nice pocket without very much difficulty at all. So I basically opened up the chicken breast, and I'm going to put that down. So now we need to deal with stuffing. So there's 2 different ways to do stuffing here for iDiet, and both of them are really great. There's almost no way to screw up stuffing, in fact. One is like a homemade recipe from scratch.
I could find a way to screw up stuffing, I think.
So this is onions sauteed in just a teaspoon of oil until they're really nice and soft. This is sage and onion stuffing that I'm going to do here. And I made some breadcrumbs. It's just not possible to buy iDiet legal breadcrumbs. Yes, unfortunately. I wish that wasn't true. So when I want breadcrumbs, what I do is I start with Thomas's light muffins is one, or you can have another iDiet legal bread that you like. I blend it up so that I've got crumbs, and then I put those crumbs in the oven at 300 degrees, and I just turn it off and I leave them overnight, and you get some really nice dry breadcrumbs.
Oh, so all this is just Thomas English muffin
Right.
crumbled up.
Right, that's 4 English muffins blended up so that they were crumbs and put in the oven, turn the oven off, and I've got dry breadcrumbs that are iDiet legal. And you can use those all the way through the holiday. So this is just one chicken breast. I'm not really making a huge amount, but I have something like 1/4 cup of onions and 1/4 cup of iDiet legal breadcrumbs, because this is sage and onion stuffing. I'm going to add, and because I like sage a great deal, this is like about 1/2 teaspoon of sage, a little bit of pepper, a little bit of salt, and then I mix those together. And then there's no butter, there's no oil. What I have here is a beaten egg with 2 tablespoons of milk, and I will just put enough in to make a good mixture. If you're making more chicken breast, you would use the whole egg. So we have here a fairly moist stuffing mixture, which will firm up a bit as the breadcrumbs absorb the egg mixture. But there's, most stuffing is made with a huge amount of butter, and actually you don't need it. You really don't need it for the taste. And that's all you do. That's the complicated stuffing. So that's really not hard.
Dr. Roberts, can I ask you a quick question?
Please.
Can you use other types of herbs and spices? Why did you go with sage?
So I happen to like sage and onion stuffing, but if you wanted to use thyme and lemon, you could use 1/4 teaspoon of thyme and some grated lemon rind. That would work really great too. Another way to do stuffing is to say, yeah, I don't really want to start from scratch, and I have a mix that I like.
Right.
None of the mixes, I just picked up this mix in my local supermarket, Market Basket. None of the mixes are going to be iDiet legal. They're just not.
Right.
But what you can do is you can make 3 parts your favorite stuffing mix.
1 part wheat bran.
And 1 part coarse wheat bran. And then if you look at the package, they all come with, recommendations for 1/2 stick of butter or something like that. So you just don't do any of that, and you use your egg and milk mix to moisten it.
Can I just repeat that? Because I think I interrupted you. So you're going to do 1 part of the coarse wheat bran, and we have here Bob's Red Mill is the one that Dr. Roberts is using. 3 parts of the stuffing mix, did you say?
Right.
And then what did you add? Because you said you omitted the egg, the fat.
I beat an egg with about 2 tablespoons of milk, and then you just mix it in.
Brilliant.
That's all you do. So if you have a stuffing mix that you like, it's a great way to just turn it iDiet legal, and that's actually really good too. So either of those work well. You have your stuffing mix, and then you just put it in the pocket of the chicken that you created. And spread it around a bit and flip over the top. All right, so I'll pick that up so you can see. So that's a stuffed chicken breast, and you can see it's quite big. But now the next problem you face is that if you just put that in the oven by itself, it's going to get dry and horrible, which we don't want. And so I'll show you how to create a false skin, if you like, which works really well. First of all, I'm going to season it. I'll put some paprika. I'll put some onion powder. You could put any seasonings you like. It could be garlic, it could be herbs. And then on top of that, I take a little sieve, or any sieve, and just a couple of teaspoons of flour, and sift that across the chicken. And then I spray oil on top of that. And I'm going to hope that the flour doesn't fly everywhere.
I'm making a run for it.
Yeah, okay, we've done it.
How about that? Oh, there we go. Now it's coming out.
Okay. So what we have is a chicken breast that's totally healthy, totally iDiet legal, and it has this nice skin on the top that you can now bake that. And if you bake that for about 30 to 40 minutes at 375, it's going to come out looking beautiful. And actually, I baked 2 earlier to show you.
Oh wow, I'm holding that right.
Aren't they great? Yeah. So these are stuffed chicken breasts that I made earlier using just the same technique. When you put that one over there.
So Dr. Roberts, one thing I noticed a trend in everything you cook is you take comfort foods, you take like American staples, and then you find the ingredients that aren't good for weight control, and you kind of dilute them, or you combine them with something that is good for weight control. Like that, what you did with the stuffing, but mix it with the coarse wheat bran to make it a healthier version of stuffing. That's a consistent thing that you do throughout the recipes in your book.
Right, and it's really easy. I mean, the ones that I cooked actually did precisely that. They used the stuffing mix with some coarse wheat bran, and I had one of those the other day, and it was delicious. So it's a really easy way to have your health and have the taste that you love too.
Very cool.
All right. So stuffed mushrooms are made in almost the same way as the stuffing for the chicken. And I made some of that stuffing earlier, but basically you start in the same way that you would do for a stuffing for the chicken. You have fried onions, you have some breadcrumbs, you also have some grated Parmesan cheese and some parsley. But apart from that, it's an identical stuffing mix with breadcrumbs, and then you add the egg and milk mixture to make it soft. And then all you do is you take some of that mixture and you put it on top, you put it on the mushrooms.
Now, did you say you chose to use parsley in this?
Yeah, I like parsley. I mean, I like the taste of parsley, but I'm also I have my mind out to how can I get some green things in the cooking? Because I think we all know that eating your greens is really healthy. And to the extent that you can slide greens that you like into foods that you like, you've got like free nutrition. It's very healthy. So these are stuffed mushrooms. All you have to do now is spray a little oil over them. And I'm not going to do that now because I think we've proven we can do that. And bake them. And they're baking about 15 to 20 minutes, 375. And then you've got this really delicious appetizer. And I made some of those earlier too. So I've got a plate. Ooh. And so what you can see, actually, these mushrooms plus those were an 8-ounce pack of mushrooms. And I can tell you from personal experience that people consider stuffed mushrooms really special, even though, they're so easy to make. And so if you have a crowd, you'd probably want to buy, I don't know, maybe 3 or even 4 boxes of mushrooms because they shrink down when you bake them. And so if somebody likes stuffed mushrooms, they might be happy to consume like 3 or 4 of those. So your 8 ounces would only do 2 or 3 people.
Mushrooms always intrigued me because they're a lot lower in calories than you might guess. They're under 30 calories or so per a cup of mushrooms. Right. And they also have that umami taste. It's a different taste. It's a little bit like meat. It's a little bit like protein. So a lot of people think that they like mushrooms because it feels like they're eating higher calorie proteins, but they're getting away with it with a lot less calories. Right.
And this is an iDiet legal recipe with mushrooms, with vegetables, with greens, and it's special enough for Thanksgiving.
That's a good point. This has every vitamin and mineral you could possibly from A to K, A to Z. That's impressive.
Right, and if you have vegans coming for Thanksgiving, you could get rid of the cheese. If you have carnivores, you could add some chopped ham. They're very flexible about what you can add in or take out. It's really nice, and they're always good.
Very cool. What do we have next?
Okay, so we're doing very well here. That's 2 things that are demonstrated. Let's just move these things somewhere. And then we can demonstrate some kind of crazily easy no-cook things.
So it sounds like we're switching gears now. So for anyone who's the no-cook person who wasn't really getting much out of the last two, the next two is going to be for you.
And
oh, spiralized veggies. Good, good.
You know, I think people who don't cook wouldn't normally think of these things, but you know, we all want to stay healthy. You know, none of us want to gain 5 pounds over Thanksgiving weekend. And if
Dr. Roberts, I apologize. We have a question from a couple people. Which mushroom variety would you recommend just for that previous dish?
You know, the honest truth is I just go into the supermarket and I look and I see which ones are freshest.
Okay, yeah.
And sometimes it's the white ones. Sometimes it's the brown ones. I've forgotten the name. I don't use any kind of weird shiitake or something like that. I mean, not to say weird, but kind of unusual shapes. I use the kind of regular mushrooms, either the white ones or the brown ones, according to what looks freshest. And they both work equally well. I
see. So go after the ones that look better versus a certain name. And that's smart because mushrooms are very perishable. So, for example, if you go on a Tuesday and your supermarket doesn't get their deliveries on Tuesday, you might be looking at some mushrooms that are 2 or 3 days old. So looking for the freshest one instead of the brand name.
Right. The one thing you might also think about as well is that if they're very tight, one thing you can do if you're cooking them in the evening, you can just put them on the counter in the morning, and they will usually open up a bit that way.
Oh.
So.
Okay, sorry to interrupt you.
No, I love your interruptions because if I forget something, you bring it up for me. It's awesome. So you know, what do you do about vegetables on Thanksgiving if you really don't love cooking? And there's all these great new things in the supermarkets which are really delicious. So now these are actually, can I have the 2 packages back? You can buy green beans. I mean, green beans are a real staple for Thanksgiving for many people. And you can buy, you know, the green beans and you can steam them or you can boil them or something like that. But my opinion is that these packages of beans that you microwave are actually better at this point. If you and you just buy the package of beans like this, you have to stab 2 or 3 holes in the package to let the steam out. And then according to how strong your microwave is, you either microwave them for 4 or 5 minutes. And then you get this wonderful plate of green beans that haven't lost any of their color. They're all a perfect texture. They've retained all of the, you know, kind of sweet flavor. I think they're just much better than any bean that you could boil on the stove, and they're so much easier. And then, you know, if you want to arrange them nicely, I just like lined all the beans up. You could put just a small amount of butter on the top. You could put some herbs on the top if you like. A lot of people like to put toasted almonds on the top for Thanksgiving. That's a very nice touch too. And that's like a totally no work vegetable that even if you don't cook or ever use the stove, you can do that in 5 minutes. And it's really easy and it's really delicious.
If you bring that to a Thanksgiving, a family outing, they'll think you can cook. They won't think that it's a no-cook type option.
Yeah.
And this was called Eat Smart Green Beans, but it sounds like Dr. Roberts pretty much any of these microwavable green beans.
I think so. I just got those in my local supermarket, but I've used other brands from other supermarkets and they've worked equally well.
Awesome.
All right, so now here's another really easy thing, which has been around a bit, and I've been looking at this and wondering what to do with it. But I got this from Whole Foods, and I know that other supermarkets do the same thing, which is butternut squash noodles. And, you know, many of us think that squash is really a traditional food on Thanksgiving, so it's nice. And these are really microwavable too. I put this container of butternut squash, actually it was about half the container because I ate the other half the other night and it was very good. But so half a container of this I microwaved for about 1.5 minutes in a closed container. That's all I did. And it's perfectly cooked. It's kind of a delicious, interesting looking dish. If you want, you can You can garnish it with something like parsley if you like, or you could put some paprika on top. You could put a little butter on top. But again, it's just a delicious bowl of vegetables that never saw the stove.
And what I'm noticing is that we're starting to get more colors on our Thanksgiving table. It's not the traditional greens and whites. Now we're getting some yellows mixed in.
Well, that actually raises another issue, which is that, you know, if you're trying to keep your traditional Thanksgiving, but you also want to get healthier, a really easy way to do that is to every year add one healthy thing. You don't have to take anything out, or maybe you can take one thing out, but just keep adding one or even perhaps two things like some extra vegetables. And they're there and they add to the abundance and the beauty of the table. And they're healthy things that you can fill your plate with. And, you know, something like this is great for that. So that's another really easy thing.
Very nice. And the garnishes too. I've noticed you've been using a lot of the garnishes.
Okay. So now I'm just going to clean the counter briefly. So now we're going to do the bit which is most likely to go wrong.
All right, my favorite one.
Which is pie, actually tart in this case. So we have in our Thanksgiving recipe package a pastry recipe, and I have to say that's a pastry of my own design. It's actually like a halfway house between an English and a French pastry, and it's really very good. But I need to bring a few things over to make this work. So now you can buy a pastry shell, but in my opinion, if you want to make a totally amazing pie, it's better to start with your own pastry. And I think there's a perception that that's really hard, but actually this method is really quite foolproof. So if you're not like a great pie person, or you're not a great baker, and I personally don't consider I really am either, this is a pretty foolproof way to do it. So now I'm going to try and not mess up so that I prove it's not foolproof. So what this is, and this, it's a pretty incredible thing. This is like a 9-inch pie plate, which I'm going to use. And this is 1 cup of flour and 4 tablespoons of butter. Okay. That's all. Gotcha. And just a sprinkle of salt. And because I'm English, I actually don't use a pastry cutter. We use our hands to do that. So I did that beforehand. Can you pass me the sweeteners?
Yes.
Actually, I just need this one.
Okay. So
in my recipe, the pastry has a really tiny amount of real sugar. So I'm going to put something like a teaspoon of raw sugar in the pastry. And mix that in really well. And then this is another beaten egg with another 2 tablespoons of milk. And, you know, I keep the ratio of milk to egg pretty similar across things, because then I don't have to think, oh, am I using 2 or 3 or 1 or something for everything. It's pretty much the same ratio. And then I'm just going to mix some of this in, however much I need to make a ball of pastry. And the great thing with the method, which I'm going to show, is that if you kind of by accident put too much in, it doesn't matter.
It's forgiving. So
you don't have to be like a perfect pastry chef who gets it exactly. And it doesn't have to be ice cold water and, you know, all of the other fussing that a normal pastry recipe requires. When my daughter was a young girl, she used to horrify me because she would make pastry with me on Thanksgiving, and rather than treating it kind of lightly and gently, which is what you're supposed to do with pastry, she would get in there and she would be kneading it like bread, and I would be saying, no, Diana, you can't do that to pastry, and it would turn out fine too. So it really is resilient, even for small kids. Gotcha. So I'm going to show you this. This is a ball of pastry made with just 1 cup of flour.
Wow, that's a lot more than I thought.
Okay, so now the secret to making this kind of an iDiet respectable pastry, if you like, is to use parchment.
Really?
to roll it. And the reason I use parchment is very simply that you can roll it thinner. If you roll it, so you can have, you know, a kind of a beautiful pastry with no compromise on taste. And then if you roll it in parchment, you can roll it really thin. And so if you have a pastry that's half as thick, you have half as many calories. You know, it's just like a calculation. And you don't have to be an expert roller, which I think you can all see I'm not. The egg plays an important role that it stops it getting chewy. So even if you kind of mangle the rolling and you don't have a very good rolling technique, which I don't, it's going to be delicious pastry anyway. So the combination of this kind of very rich egg-based pastry and rolling it really thin like this means that you have gourmet pastry, and you don't have to be a pastry chef to get a really good result.
So that goes to what we talked about before, where it's a traditional staple food, but you take the item that's not good for weight control and you manipulate it in some way to make it a little better for weight control. That's
my joy. I mean, my family have been so patient with me while I test all these things. I never ever let anything loose on my dieters before my family tests it first.
And they're a tough crowd, you were mentioning on one of our previous cooking demos.
Right. So now, okay, so that's almost big enough. I'm just measuring it here to see if it's big enough. And it's not quite big enough. Okay. So we've got this pastry now. So now there's two ways to go right now. If you put, you know, enough liquid in and you didn't overdo the liquid and make it a bit sticky, you can just get this right out into the pie dish without any additional step.
Got it.
If you put a bit too much egg mixture in by accident and it's a little bit sticky, you'll find it sticks to the paper a bit. And that's not a problem either, because if you just put it in the freezer for 2 or 3 minutes and bring it out, you can use it and it'll be fine.
So just to repeat that, so if you accidentally put a little too much of the egg in there so it's sticky, so you can tell it's going to break, if you pull that piece of paper, put it in the freezer for 2 minutes and you'll be okay. You'll be able to take it right off and it shouldn't tear.
But I was lucky. So I didn't put too much egg in this time. I have on occasions put too much egg in, and that's how I know about the freezer technique. Okay, so then now we're gonna get this into the pie dish.
Well, see, that's the part I would have screwed up. That would have gone everywhere.
It's, you know, you have to be decisive. You have to just do it in a.
You got to commit.
Do it in a quick motion. And then you've got it.
Wow, look at that.
Isn't that amazing? Hey, we worked. It worked.
And it's a lot thinner than a traditional pie crust.
It's a lot thinner. And so you get this delicious tasting pastry, and it really is the best. It really is the best tasting pastry out there. It's wonderful. And it doesn't go chewy. And it is really thin. I mean, I don't know how much this is, maybe 1 millimeter thick, something like that. But you can tell from the ingredients that I'm doing a whole pie bottom with 1 cup of flour and just 2 tablespoons of butter.
Right.
So the ingredients are the best ingredients, but then there's not that many of them.
It's a lot less than other pies, absolutely.
And so then, you know, what you can do is just simply, if there's some places where you're a bit short of pastry, you can bring them around and add them in, and then
kind of clean it up a little bit.
Clean it up a bit. Some people, you know, they have nice pastry cutters to make a pretty edge around. I don't personally have one of those,
Mm-hmm.
but you can do a pretty good job with your fingers too. You can just kind of pinch it, go around and pinch it. So you have a nice...
So I got a quick question for you.
Yeah.
Do you remember where you got the rollers?
I'm sorry?
Do you remember where you got the rollers?
Do I know where I got the roller? Boy, that's about 50 years old. That's not true. But it's probably 20 years old. I would guess that I either got it in Crate and Barrel or I got it in Williams and Sonoma, because that's where I haven't bought this. I mean, it really is very old.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nice because it's quite long.
Right,
so, you know, you can make that.
Yeah.
But so here's my pie bottom, and I'm going to prick the bottom so any steam coming up doesn't disrupt it. So rather than buying something where the thickness is going to be maybe 4 times as much, so it would be 4 times as much pastry in a commercial pie shell, we've got this better tasting thing, which really wasn't that hard. Would you dare to make pastry after this?
Yeah. Well,
honestly, yeah.
I was just thinking, it's amazing that you've used such little ingredients, and then you still have extra stuff at the end that you didn't need. That technique right there is extremely good for weight control.
Yeah. No, this is great, and it's not like you're going to lose weight with pie.
Right.
But the goal is not gaining weight.
Exactly. And our goals are different in Thanksgiving.
Having something really delicious. Okay, so now, then you can put in really what you want to put in. What I've done, what I did this time is, you know, you could make a bit more pastry, and you could make a conventional apple pie. The Thanksgiving handout has a filling for pecan pie, which is really good too. And in this case, I thought, well, I'm going to do something different. So I decided to make an apple flam. And I'll just demonstrate what I'm doing for that, because I've got an example pie. But basically, I sliced up some Cortland apples, which I think is nice for this because they soften down pretty well.
I wish you guys could smell how good these apples smell right now.
And I mixed in enough sweetener of my choice, and I'll go over sweeteners in a bit.
Okay.
With a teaspoon of cinnamon and half a teaspoon of allspice, but you could have all cinnamon, or you could add nutmeg, or anything that you cared. And then I think you can just arrange these. You can arrange these beautifully around the pie in a nice spiral, so that you've got a decorative pie. And I'm just going to do a few of this to illustrate. You can go the whole way around, creating your pie, and then sprinkle with chopped walnuts. So it's not only going to be a delicious pie, it's going to be a healthy pie. It's got walnuts with all of those great fatty acids. It's got apple, it's got spices.
A little bit of fiber in the apple, a little bit of protein in the walnuts.
Right. And then to cook that pie, what you do is you cover it with foil, because you don't want it to dry out. You want to keep all of the moisture in there that you've got. And I made one of those earlier, so if you could take all of this away. I made one of these earlier. And so here it is.
Wow, look at that.
Looks pretty good, huh? And as the last step, since this is Thanksgiving, I'm going to be drizzling on some caramel sauce, which I made. And I'm just going to microwave that. In fact, it needs just a slight microwave in order to... Maybe you could get rid of those other things. So I have a small amount of caramel sauce here, which was made with 1 tablespoon of butter and 1 tablespoon of brown sugar and half a teaspoon of cornstarch and a small amount of water, which I'm just going to drizzle over. And then we have a beautiful looking pie. I think the important thing here is not to necessarily use my filling recipe, but to use this way of reducing the amount of pastry, so that anything that you like, really, you can use.
Absolutely. The things that are not so good for weight control, but the sauces as well as the crust, you use a lot less of that, but you're more liberal on things like the apples and the walnuts and things that are good for weight control. So and it still looks extreme. Like if you bring that to a family Thanksgiving, you'll be the hit of the party.
I know, and it's not difficult. So you can take half of that home.
Yes, all right. Best job right now.
So, okay, what next? So cranberry sauce next.
Cranberry sauce.
Cranberry sauce. Let's have all of those things. We're making a great collection behind, and actually at the end of the session, we will bring them all out and lay them all out so we can see them all together, which will be very nice.
All right.
So now cranberry sauce. Some people just buy it, but
before you get started, I have to say cranberry sauce, in my opinion, is a staple. It is not Thanksgiving unless there's cranberry sauce there.
So I totally agree with you on that. But now, do you have?
Mine looks like a can. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
So I don't think we need to go with cans because it's so delicious when you make it, and it's so easy to make. So, and you can make different variations, which is really nice. I was thinking that perhaps there would be fresh cranberries in the supermarket today, but there wasn't. There wasn't. So I had to pick up some frozen cranberries.
Oh, Sue, we have a quick question. That sauce that you made?
Yes.
Will you be providing the recipe for that? Okay.
I will.
So Sue will definitely, Dr. Roberts will definitely make sure that the sauce recipe tomorrow, we'll make sure we get that to you.
Right. And you won't let me forget.
I will not let you forget.
Right. Okay. So with cranberry sauce, usually the packet just has a recipe. And I used to follow those, but I've kind of changed them a bit because really it comes out very sweet for my taste, so I tend to use less sugar. But the traditional proportional ingredients, if you like, is 1 pound of cranberries to 1 cup of sugar to 1 cup of water.
That's a lot of sugar.
And it's a lot of sugar.
Yeah.
So what I do is and I find it too sweet personally. So what I do is, first of all, I cut that down to 2/3 of a cup of sugar. And because I like my cranberry sauce not to be too solid, I increase the water to about 1 1/3 cups.
Which of course is going to make it a little better for weight control.
Right,
yes,
right. And then you have to decide what kind of sweetener you want to put in. And so, we're a big tent for sweeteners. I agonize about the safety of sweeteners and whether we should continue to recommend them, I would guess every month. And I think they're still okay. I still haven't seen anything that scared me. And that's why I keep, what seems to be like a very comprehensive selection in my house. But what I do like to do is I like to mix and match them rather than just focus on one sweetener. And I think that has 2 advantages. One is, I think, by putting in multiple sweeteners, you get rid of that aftertaste sometimes that you have if you just have one, because they seem to balance each other out nice. And 2, if there are any small risks, you're neutralizing that by having a small amount of each one.
You're having it in moderation, right?
And let's not forget that sugar itself is not risk-free. I mean, sugar increases triglycerides, which increases the risk of diabetes, heart disease. So it's not like artificial sweeteners or nothing. We're talking about artificial sweeteners versus sugar.
Can I actually repeat that? Because I think that was really good information. So Dr. Roberts was saying that she uses a combination of each of these. So she might combine different sweeteners. That was number 1. Number 2, she was saying that you got to remember when you're using artificial sweeteners, you're replacing sugar. And we know the consequences of sugar. So it's not like going from nothing to artificial sweeteners. It's more like going down from sugar to artificial sweetener.
Right. And, just minimizing them generally.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do for cranberry sauce, in fact, is I tend to put in four sweeteners. And so that 2/3 of a cup, I would divide between either 3 or 4 different sweeteners.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that the sweetener I like most right now is this new one. Allulose. I think that's got the most natural taste. It's a rare sugar which is found in nature, so it's a fairly natural product. It's generally recognized as safe by the FDA. It's mind-bogglingly expensive. I mean, this small amount of sugar was something like $12. I mean,
wow,
it's just really expensive. And I'm thinking, well, for Thanksgiving, okay, that's okay. But so what I do is I put 1/4 of real sugar, and then I'm going to put some of this. I'm either going to use some Xyla or some Zero. These are sugar alcohols, and I think these are probably the safest of all of the sugars, these ones, because they really don't seem to have, any bad effects that I can see at all.
Dr. Roberts, can I share my tip when it comes to sugar alcohols?
Yeah.
You can always tell when something's a sugar alcohol because if you look in the ingredient list in the back, the first item will end in OL. That's how I always know. Erythritol, xylitol, sorbitol, anything that ends in OL, if it's on the ingredient list, you'll know it's going to be a sugar alcohol.
Yeah. Some of these sugar alcohols do have calories and some don't. So Zero has none. Allulose and xylose, they are about 2 calories per gram. So they're reduced calorie sweeteners. I think they're the most natural taste. I would never use all Zero because I think it has a slightly strange taste if you use it all together. And then there's stevia, which, in my opinion, is pretty good. But again, if you use 100% stevia, I think you can taste it. So I basically mix and match all of these things up. And you end up with a cranberry sauce, which is delicious. It's very low in calories. And you can't tell what kind of sweetener it is. I defy anybody to tell. And then so you dissolve your sugar in water, the greater amount of water and the smaller amount of sugar. You bring it to the boil. You add your cranberries and put the lid on, and then you just simmer it.
Wow, there's got to be less than 50 calories in half a cup or maybe a cup. There's almost no, really the only thing providing the calories is the cranberries.
So as I prepare for Thanksgiving, my own preemptive strike on Thanksgiving is going to be stuffed chicken breast and cranberry sauce. And I'm going to be so happy eating that multiple times.
Very good. Awesome. So here's the cranberry sauce. Much better than a can.
It really is. It really is. I mean, I feel like I'm a cranberry sauce connoisseur. And cans just not cut it for me. Okay, I think we've finished with all of that.
Okay.
And then I just have one last no-cook thing to show you. And so I was thinking, well, what about people who really don't like to cook, but they feel like they ought to take something special or unusual for Thanksgiving? And so this is a recipe for stuffed dates, which is actually pretty amazing, and it's also pretty healthy. So what I did, you can buy some really nice big dates in the supermarket right now. I'm just going to pick out a couple to show you. And I started with some fat-free ricotta. And I have some candied peel. And this happens to be lemon, but you could easily use orange. And I think it might actually be prettier. But so what I'm going to do is cut the dates in half and take out the stone. And these are fresh dates, but most supermarkets these days are carrying fresh dates. The dried ones would not work as well because they'd be very hard. But they've got a nice little hole in the middle, which just invites stuffing. So we've got our 4 date halves, and you can make as many as you like. And then the fat-free ricotta is iDiet legal. It's the same thing that you could put in cheesecake. So it does feel a bit, you know, it feels a little bit like cheesecake in some respect. And I'm just going to put a certain amount there, and I'm going to mix in some candied peel.
Just so you guys can see the brand name, it's Calabro.
I actually bought that in Whole Foods, and I was surprised because Whole Foods tends to be rather purist about fat-free products. They often don't stock fat-free products, which is a bit of a mystery to me. But maybe it's because Amazon has taken them over. But they had this fat-free product in there. I was so happy to see that. So I've just mixed my ricotta and my peel, and now I'm going to stuff my date halves. It's a bit too much. And you have a very unusual thing to take along, which is all natural, organic, clean, healthy, and all that. And I'll just lay those out as 4 examples. If you want to decorate that, you could put some small slithers of peel on top. You could make that into a decorative plate with maybe some raspberries, some blackberries, and things like that. So Jim, you're always our taster. Let me give you a half of one of these to have a try.
Absolutely. Okay. It's very good. Very sweet. It's a lot sweeter than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Even though we didn't put any sugar in.
Yeah, and that lemon slice, actually, it's got the aftertaste. That's when you really get a hit of that lemon. And it's extremely good. You know it's really good when you have the second bite. You can't fake that one.
There you go. Okay. So we have lots of good Thanksgiving foods.
Actually, I apologize, but I got to say, this might be our 8th or 9th cooking demo. This is so far my favorite thing you've made so far.
Really?
Officially my favorite.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay. And I think it was the easiest too.
And I think it was the easiest, yeah.
It was so easy. Yeah, I mean, that's an important lesson. Food doesn't have to be difficult. And you don't have to be like an amazing pastry chef to make Thanksgiving things. I mean, it's true I was nervous about the pastry because I thought, what if the pastry collapses? But if we hadn't been on camera and it had, I'd have worked it out somehow.
We'd find a way to edit it out. So do we have any more recipes?
No, we're all set for Thanksgiving recipes. If we do still our questions and products, then at the last thing, we can make a beautiful spread out there.
Yes, so you can see what a nice iDiet legal Thanksgiving table would look like. Okay, so that's part 1, the recipes. Very quick, in the last few minutes, we're just going to review a couple items and do a couple questions with Dr. Roberts. Okay, so one thing we like to do is we get a lot of people reaching out showing us different items. iDiet legal items they can buy in the grocery store. So these are 2 products we wanted to look at. The first, let's look at this. This is Gardein. I picked the Good Start breakfast patties, but in general, a lot of people, especially people who don't eat meat, have been going towards the Gardeins. I actually got this from someone in one of our on-track groups. So just for anyone who's a vegetarian, Gardein is a good product. This right here is the Gardein Good Start breakfast patties. Take this, Dr. Roberts was saying earlier, combine them with a Thomas 100-calorie English muffin, a piece of fat-free American cheese, or fat-free cheese, and you have a nice iDiet legal breakfast on the go right there.
Right. This is a really good brand. I've had, I mean, I'm not a vegetarian, but I've had a number of those, and they're all really good.
Awesome. So the other item we have is actually, again, another one that someone shared with me. We're always sharing these new ice creams out there. Some of them, Dr. Roberts has said this is terrible. Others, she said these are good. We've had the Halo top. We have Arctic Zero. We've had Enlightened. Well, here's another one on the market. This one is so delicious, dairy-free coconut milk, 10 grams of fiber, It's a cheap fiber, Dr. Roberts was saying a little bit, but it's still 10 grams of fiber, 100 calories. Dr. Roberts, what do you think?
I think it's good. I mean, you know, it's 100 calories per half cup, so it's not as good as some of the others. It is iDiet legal. I think it's our duty to taste it, probably, isn't it?
Yes, I think so.
The fiber is chicory root, which I don't think it's, you know, anywhere near as effective as something like wheat bran as a food.
Right.
But you know, we're talking about ice cream here, so let's see what it tastes like. It's actually really good.
Really good.
I mean, I think the calories from this mean that I would be careful about having this on a routine basis. But, you know, what about having this for Thanksgiving? People who like to have ice cream and pie.
On their pie, yeah.
I would say this would be like a fabulous choice for that because it's actually really tasty.
Great point. Very good point. So some of the other ones we tried have been 45 calories per cup. I think the Halo Top. The Arctic Zero. So yeah, Dr. Roberts was mentioning this one's a little more 100 calories. The fiber is not the best quality compared to like the wheat brand, but Dr. Roberts was saying might be good for a Thanksgiving treat. Put it on the pie.
Right.
Okay, so our final.
I have one more product. Actually.
Of course.
Let me get that, which is it's not a good product. It's actually a bad product, and I wanted to complain about it. So, because you know, it's very easy to assume that these new products, which are packaged to look so, you know, clean and organic and stuff like that, are going to be healthy.
Oh.
But I picked up this just out of curiosity in the supermarket the other day. It's Forager dairy-free cashew yogurt, organic yogurt alternative. And, you know, it looks so appealing. Cashew
it does
yogurt,
look good,
something like that. But look at the calories. 130 calories in that small container. And it's only got 2 grams of protein and 1 gram of fiber.
That's it?
Yeah.
What's it all coming from sugar and fat?
Look at that. I mean, it's got a great deal of carbohydrate.
Wow.
It's got cassava root. It's got cornstarch. It's got rice starch. It's got cane sugar. It's got every kind of sugar and starch known to mankind, virtually.
Oh my God.
And 130 calories and virtually no protein and fiber.
Right.
So, you know, reading the labels is really helpful. I got that because I wanted to show it tonight as an example of something which is not good. I mean, it's good to know what products are good, but it's also good to be aware that these new food companies are not necessarily our friend when it comes to weight management at all.
That's a good one to share because you see all those that are so good for weight control, but every so often something like this sneaks in.
Right.
So, Dr. Roberts, we're running out of time, so I'm thinking let's do 2 questions and then maybe a minute each. So the first one, a question that was submitted by somebody out there, recovery plan. So you go to Thanksgiving, you fall off track. How do you get yourself back on track after a rough Thanksgiving?
Right. I think our modified fast is actually a great way to go. If you've really kind of hugely overdone it and you're feeling tempted, I think doing the 2-day modified fast is a really great way to snap back.
I like that one.
You know, we can provide that to all of the people going through the programs, and you would really get back on track with that.
Perfect. So the iDiet modified fast, great thing to do if, say, for example, you had a little too much food on Thanksgiving. Last but certainly not least, we went through all these great Thanksgiving dishes. Which one was your favorite?
Well, I know what I'm eating tonight. I'm eating stuffed chicken breast with cranberry sauce, but I might have some pie afterwards. I like all of these things. I mean, I'm a foodie. You know, one of the great things about these cooking videos is I get to cook the foods that I really like to. So I'd be hard-pressed to say that I'm going to eat all of them.
So you picked 3, and then my favorite, of course, is the dates you didn't mention. So between the 2 of us, I think we picked every one.
Right.
Okay, guys, so the last thing I want to do is just set all this thing up so you can kind of see what the iDiet Thanksgiving table looks like.
I would say it did feel slightly strange to be making all of these, you know, things, 5 weeks, 6 weeks in advance of Thanksgiving. But I know from previous experience that if we leave it to the week or 2 before Thanksgiving, everybody's already decided what they're going to cook. So it's really too late for us to help. And I really feel so strongly that Thanksgiving can be enjoyable and healthy. We don't need to make any compromises on that. And, you know, we've put these things together, you know, with only about 40 minutes. And I did a certain amount of advanced preparation, certainly, but it wasn't a huge amount. And we've already got the beginnings of a great meal here.
We really do. Okay, so I got to get the yogurt out of the way because that definitely didn't make the list. But before we go, in a very unprofessional way, here's what the iDiet Thanksgiving table will look like. You have your chicken, your main course. You've got your side vegetables. You've got the cranberry sauce that does not look like a can. You've got, for your no-cook options, you have your spiralized veggies, your green beans, both of which have that nice garnish on top. And then, of course, the dessert.
So we hope that you will enjoy these recipes. I will be getting the recipes to Jim tomorrow morning so that you can all try them. And especially for the chicken breast and the stuffing and the veggies, do try them before because they're healthy. They can be slotted right into any iDiet eating plan.
Awesome. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.